Beloved Madridistas, welcome back to the channel. First of all, let me say sorry. I was running around the last 3-4 days. I had guests over from out of town. And I live in a city where going out to lunch and dinner can take 7 hours. So I really apologize for that. But listen, let's talk about the Betis match. I think there's some really interesting takeaways out of this match, especially in the context of where the squad was. But listen, this was a little bit better. I think a couple of the issues that I raised in my last video in terms of problems, obvious problems, I think a couple of them are getting addressed, and I do see some improvement. So I want to give you my thoughts on the match. Very kind of frantic first half, much better second half. But let me, I think we're all kind of surprised to see Ceballos in the starting 11, and we can talk about that. But let me give you my thoughts on the match. I'll give you thoughts on individual players. And then unfortunately, as every week, we have to talk about the refs, because not a week goes by in this country that we're not reminded that the people that run the refs and the people that run the VAR and the people that run the TV, it's just a corrupt mess. But anyway, let's get caught up on all this stuff. Thanks for joining me. Apologies for the last few days, but let's get started. Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, let's talk about the Betis match. And the first thing that I would sort of start off by saying is that there were a couple of things that I think were quite encouraging. Among the many issues that I identified in my previous video, there were two issues that I think we did start to correct. Okay, number one, the level of intensity. Okay, whether it's pressing or with the ball, the level of intensity and speed was significantly higher. I think this was very, very visible. I think the players know that they were backed against a corner. The pressure in this city is incredible, and I think that they knew that they had to play at 110%. So it was very good to see just a generally speaking, a higher level of intensity. Also, the speed of rotation and movement of the ball. So the circulation of the ball, I think, was much, much faster than we've seen in previous matches. So there was just a greater sense of urgency, a greater aggressiveness in the style of play in general. Although sometimes I think it translated into a slightly frantic feeling up front. I got the feeling that, the front players were just playing at such a high velocity, and they were just kind of a little bit frantic, a little bit hectic at times. So I think it made us a little bit less accurate in terms of creating chances, but there was no doubt that this was a much more intense performance by everybody. Okay, I was very surprised to see Ceballos in the starting lineup. I think he did a good job. I mean, he ran a lot. He worked very, very hard in defensive duties as well. He was very active. Ceballos is a player that I've criticized in the past for sometimes holding the ball too long and kind of embellishing himself unnecessarily, especially in dangerous parts of the pitch. This wasn't the case. I thought he played a very, very decent game, and I think made a really, really good contribution. Look, I was disappointed that Arda didn't play. It was a bit surprising to me that he didn't get minutes even in the second half. So I must mention that not just myself, but a lot of people here were quite surprised that Arda didn't get minutes. But like I say, there was just a slight sense in the first half, I think, of chaos and kind of frantic desperation up front, and you could just kind of feel it, that last pass was just a bit too rushed, a little bit too inaccurate. The second half I thought was much, much better. And I had that feeling that I had in the Valencia match, which is that once the first goal goes in, the game will open up in our favor. And I think that's going to be the case very, very often during the course of this season. But listen, the can of worms was finally opened up with an incredible, genius little flick by Fede Valverde. And we're going to talk about Fede because this guy is insane. I don't know where he comes from. But it was a very, very intelligent pass, a beautifully timed run by Kylian, and of course an ice-cold finish. So once that happened, I think the game opened up. And as always, once Real Madrid has space, this is where our players' talent really, really shows because of the speed that our players have. I have to mention, a couple of other things. I thought in terms of the changes, Brahim, I thought was particularly electric. When he came on the pitch, he just added a whole new level of danger to our attack. I think Fran added a little bit of depth on the left. I think Mendy defended well, but wasn't really linking up and participating well on the left-hand side in terms of offense. And then, I think Enric, when Enric came in, I think he showed us that he has something I mentioned on this channel before. He has very, very good movement off the ball. He's a very intuitive striker, knows where to move, knows where to find spaces, and he very nearly gave us another unbelievable goal with his quickness, and it was a real shame that didn't go in. But I think that overall this was a better performance. I think that overall we're moving in the right direction, and things like speed and intensity are back, and that was really, really good to see. In terms of individual players, look, I think Carvajal had a very solid match. I mean, he's a very consistent player. There was nothing particularly spectacular, but I think that he was, very aggressive in his defensive duties. Mendy, like I say, I felt he defended well, but he was a little bit absent in some of the attacks. Militao, one of the great takeaways of the match is that Militao, in my view, is back to 100%. He showed incredible speed on so many occasions in recovery. He was resounding in aerial challenges. He was very quick to go to ground when he had to, and always got to the ball on time. I think it was very encouraging to see Militao's form. Rudiger, just consistent as always. Very powerful, in the right place at the right time. I thought Rudiger had a very, very solid match. Now, Tchouaméni, this is interesting because we have been critical of Tchouaméni in the past, but I think he had a fantastic match. He worked incredibly hard, not just in defensive duties, but his transition play was good, quick. He stole a lot of balls. He released the ball quickly. It's something that we like to see. I think Tchouaméni had possibly one of the best matches I think I've seen him play since he's come to Madrid. So that was very, very encouraging, especially because Camavinga is going to be out still for a few weeks. Now, Fede Valverde, okay, this man is just a lab experiment. I mean, we should call him Frankenstein Fede from now on, because he was absolutely unbelievable. And I do not know where he gets the physical ability to sprint so much, so often, and never seems to show any signs of fatigue. It is something baffling. I don't know if this is a physiological condition or whether he was designed in the lab, but I think Fede had incredible runs, not just going forward, but some of his backtracking in critical situations defensively were just unbelievable. And again, he never seems to be huffing and puffing. He never seems to be out of breath. He never seems to get tired and never seems to get injured. So listen, knock on wood, Fede is turning out to be an exceptional midfielder. And just, I think he was exceptional. In my view, the best player on the pitch. Okay, Ceballos, like I mentioned, I think worked very hard, did very well, moved the ball well. He showed a lot of quickness, aggressiveness, helped a lot in defensive duties. He did sort of, kind of over-embellish at times. That's sort of his style of play. It seems like he likes to dribble before he passes all the time. But I thought he had a very good game. Bini, I thought, was wonderful. I mean, he has such an aggressive attitude. He's just always causing problems. And you may have noticed how many times Vini came all the way back and backtracked and helped in defense. It was really, really exceptional. I think he puts 110% into every single match he plays. And I just thought he was absolutely wonderful. By the way, I also noticed that he was constantly looking for Kylian, there was a lot of awareness between those two, which, hasn't translated into a lot of goals yet, but I have a feeling that the more time they play together, that they're going to start to gel. Okay, Kylian, he was stuck in the middle pretty much the whole time. I only saw him go to the left, I think once, but he was stuck in the middle, but showing a lot, for a number 9, showing a lot of mobility, great movement, a lot of awareness, always trying to link up with other players. His speed on the counter is insane. I mean, when Vini and Mbappe head out on a counterattack, I mean, it's like a stampede. It's an amazing thing to watch. And of course, he has that ice-cold finishing of a real killer, which we saw last night. It was wonderful to see Kylian sort of get the monkey off his back. You got the feeling he was very stressed and really wanted to score. The pressure in Madrid is unlike any other club in the world, and every little thing is noticed, every little thing is amplified. And if you play a couple of games and your name is Kylian Mbappe and you haven't scored, you're going to feel the pressure cooker, because that's what playing for Real Madrid is like. But I could sense an enormous amount of relief from Kylian that those goals went in. And I think, generally speaking, the vibe of the squad has improved a lot. Rodrigo, I thought, was very, very active. I thought particularly in the first half, he was one of the more active players, really trying to break things open. He was very mobile, very quick. And I think I had a very, very good first half. I think in the second half, he was slightly... maybe didn't stand out as much because Vinny and Kylian were kind of leading that show. But I think overall, Rodrigo, I think, played quite well. The subs, very quickly, look, Fran Garcia, I think, brought a lot of offensive depth on the left-hand side. This is the second game that he participates in a positive way. And Fran Garcia is a player that I have criticized in the past, but I have to say that his performance in the last two matches, the minutes that he's played have been quite good. So that was very encouraging to see. Luka Modric was good. He was, I don't think he did lose a couple of balls that were annoying, but I think it was a sort of sensible performance, but nothing to write home about, to be frank. Brahim was by far the super sub. His contribution was incredible. Every time he touched the ball, he was absolutely electric, got away from defenders, that speed that he has and that awareness to make the right passes. He's just a fantastic player. And again, this is a luxury sub, and sometimes I feel shouldn't be a sub. And then Enric came on with very, very, very little time. I think there were 3 or 4 minutes. But in that tiny amount of time, he had one beautiful run right between the defenders, perfectly timed. And the speed, I don't know if you guys noticed this, he gets to the ball so quickly and very narrow. The goalkeeper saves it. That could have very easily been a goal, and it would have been a pretty exceptional goal. So very, very happy with the signs that Enric is giving us as well. So listen, overall the vibes are very positive. I think we're moving in the right direction. I think that there's a greater awareness now on the part of the players that they need to play with greater responsibility and intensity and a sense of collective play. And I did see that yesterday. And I think if the nerves calm down a little, I think we're going to start to see these players gel. It's very unfortunate that we have the international break now. I hate these breaks at the beginning of the season. Right when your team is starting to kind of get together, they have to disappear for a week. It's very, very unfortunate, but there's nothing we can do about that. But overall, I'm encouraged by what I see, and I'm much more hopeful than I was, after the last couple of matches. Okay. I hate to do this, but we have to talk about the ref because this is just outrageous. This just happens every week, every single week. The ref's name is a guy called Arbeloa Rojas. Now, this guy was, one of Negreira's hand-picked refs. Like all of Negreira's hand-picked refs they're still inactive. You would think that in a country where a club got caught bribing refs, that they would try to clean up the system. Well, no, these guys are still around. But he was a guy that was cherry-picked by Negreira, promoted by Negreira to the first division, picked up by Negreira's son before matches where he was given instructions on how to referee. This has been going on for years, and it is still going on because the handball was the most obvious handball. The ref made a sign as if to imply that the hand was stuck to the body. The hand was not stuck to the body. And any intention to try to pretend it was is a deliberate lie and is disingenuous and malicious, because that was a handball, end of discussion. The penalty to Ceballos was right in front of his face. And can you believe that was not a penalty, but the penalty to Rafinha against Valencia, where he was not even touched, that was a penalty. The double standard is apparent, it's obvious, and it happens every week, and I'm absolutely sick of it. In the first goal, I don't know if you guys noticed this, the ref calls offside even though the line judge hadn't raised his flag. So he called the ref, there's no flag. The ref raises his hand, says no, offside, and tells the line judge to raise his flag. Okay, is that how it works? Because I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. But there you go. Welcome to referees in La Liga. And then in the second goal, the penalty against Vini, they tried so hard to not give that. First you try to find offsides, then you try to find, it's an exercise in constantly trying to find something wrong with the play that would somehow hinder Real Madrid. And of course, it's consistently the opposite for Barça. There was a foul on Brahim where he's getting away from two players in a very dangerous situation with his speed. He is very clearly grabbed and fouled in a very dangerous counter, and they don't even call it. There were countless fouls on Vini that went, completely ignored. It's just, look, especially if you compare it to the way that referees behave when Barça plays, the double standard is absolutely disgusting, and I hate to have this conversation with you guys, but it's true. And even the commentators, because of course, the company that has the exclusive rights to La Liga is owned by a guy called Rhodes, who is a lifetime Barça supporter who lent $100 million of his own money to Barça. Well, that guy controls not just the commentators, but what happens in the VAR booth. So it's absolutely incredible. So of course, the commentators in the handball, no, it doesn't seem like a penalty. Of course they say that. But in the Rafinha penalty, where he wasn't even touched, they just skimmed over that, immediately. Anyway, the level of this corruption filters through, not just through the refs, but the images you see on TV and what happens in the VAR booth. So look, I'm sorry to throw that in at the end, but it has to be, we got to call a spade here. But anyway, listen, those are my thoughts. Again, sorry I wasn't around the last few days, but I am slightly encouraged with the way we're playing. Now, listen, it's obvious with the ref stuff, we seem to kill everybody in Europe, but in order to win La Liga in Spain, we're going to have to be perfect. We're going to have a perfect year because they're going to make it as difficult as possible for us. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and sorry about the absence, but I'll catch you guys in the next video. And as always, a la Madrid.